Hey guys, it's Kaylee from K-Books and this is my wrap-up post for the month of November 2014. So I read quite a few books this month and it was a mix between paperbacks and between ebooks, so let's get started. So the first book that I read this month was Dear Cassie by Lisa Burst. This was the second book in the Pretty Amy series and I gave this one 5 stars. This one is a young adult contemporary romance book and I absolutely loved it. I loved this one way more than Pretty Amy, and considering at the beginning of Pretty Amy I wasn't the biggest fan of the character and things like that, but I ended up loving this one. It's such a raw and real and emotional read. So yeah, I really loved that one. The next book I read was an ebook and it was The Possibility of Us by Lisa Burstein. This one was a new adult contemporary romance and I gave it 5 stars. It was a follow-on from Dear Cassie, so the characters that we met in Dear Cassie, it followed their story on, what happened to them, and yeah, I loved it. I loved revisiting them, and while at the beginning I didn't quite like what had happened between them from the end of Dear Cassie and the beginning of The Possibility of Us, but by the end Lisa did us all proud and it was a fantastic wrap-up to their story. The next one I read was Virgin by Radhika Sanghani. This is another new adult contemporary book and I actually DNF'd this one. This is an ARC copy that I got from the publisher and I'd heard such amazing things about this. I was really looking forward to it, but I just didn't like it. The character is in university, so her last year of her degree, so in England that's about 20-21 years old, and her inner ramblings were very reminiscent of a 16-year-old, and she just seemed too immature and it was a bit too unrealistic. Even though she was still a virgin, I just thought her perceptions of sex and things like that were too immature for what she realistically would be like, so I just wasn't a big fan of that, so unfortunately I didn't finish that one. The next book is The Sound by Sarah Alderson. This was my first attempt at a Sarah Alderson book and I didn't finish it, unfortunately. I will still probably give her other books a go, but the reason I didn't finish this one is it's very thriller-like and I am not a fan of thrillers. There's only very few thrillers that I actually enjoy. So unfortunately this one, they just bore me. With thrillers, I don't have the patience to wait for the mystery to unravel and things like that. So it happened the same as this one, so although I'll probably still try her other books, if they're a thriller I'll probably step out, so unfortunately I didn't like that one. The next one I read was Say Her Name by James Dawson. This is a book that I have been looking forward to and wanting to read for such a long time, but it is a young adult horror book and I am possibly the biggest baby ever. Like, I can't even watch trailers for horror movies without not being able to sleep for like a week or something. And I didn't end up finishing this one. I got about halfway and it just creeped me out a little bit too much. The thing that's different with this DNF book, different from the other ones I DNF, is that I actually really enjoyed this one. His writing style is fantastic and I was really enjoying it, but I just physically couldn't keep going because I was too frightened and too creeped out by the story to do it. So I will definitely be picking up more of James Dawson's books, but I'm not a fan of horror books. So at least I gave it a go, but it creeped me out a little bit too much. The next book was an e-arc and it is Anomaly by Tonya Cooper. This is a young adult paranormal and it's published by Entangled Teen and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's such a different and unique story to YA that hasn't been done before and I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic. So I gave that one 5 stars. The next one was an audiobook, and it is Gates of Thread and Stone. I DNF'd this one as well. It bored me a little bit, and there was certain things that the character said that just really annoyed me too much. Things like when they said he smiled kindly at me. I didn't realise you could smile aggressively or unkindly at somebody. And it really, really frustrated me. And she was just too immature, even though, yes, it's a young adult book and they are 16. It was too much for me to handle, to be able to listen to it and not be rolling my eyes and getting bored and things like that. So I wasn't a fan of that one, unfortunately. The next one I read was The Goddess Inheritance by Amy Carter. It's the third book in the Goddess Test series, and I gave this one 5 stars. I love this series. I actually had arcs of the first 2 in this series, and I read them before they even came out. But for some reason this one I just ended up putting it on my shelf and never actually getting around to it. I loved it. I love this series. It's a mythology series and it's a twist on the Persephone and Hades story. So anyone who hasn't read these and loves mythology, I would definitely recommend this one. My only little issue was with it, and it wasn't actually with the book, it was with me, is I've read so many great mythology books that I actually confused them, and I was going, don't go near that hero because that god, because he's evil, and then realising that that was actually in a different series and it was a different god that was evil in this one. So that is a small problem if you read a lot of mythology books, but it was absolutely fantastic. One of my favourite series, and I will definitely read this series again. So that one got 5 stars from me. And the next one I read was Captive by Amy Carter. This was an e-arc, and this is the second book in the Black Coat Rebellion series, and I gave it 4 stars. I didn't enjoy it as much as I did Pawn. There were certain things that happened in the book that I couldn't quite understand why the author ended up doing that. I thought that it could have been a much better story if some things hadn't happened. But it very much felt like it had what I call middle book syndrome. So I say that is when you've got a really fantastic first book. I mean, I gave the first book 5 stars, I loved it. And in a trilogy, you've got sort of the second book, which is building up to all the drama and everything happening in the third book. But it is just a bit of a stepping stone to get there, and not much happens, and it's a little bit boring. I didn't find it all that boring, but it just wasn't as good as the first one. And I think it was very much, let's just have this happen to keep the reader going to get to what's going to happen in book 3. So I did like it. I gave it 4 stars. I did really enjoy it, but it definitely was middle book syndrome in my opinion, and I am really looking forward to the last book in the series and seeing what happens there. The last book that I read is by far the one that I was most excited to have read, and it is Wicked by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the beginning of a new series, the Wicked trilogy, and this is the first book, and it is a new adult paranormal book. It is about the Fae, and it is utterly phenomenal. It is, without a doubt, possibly the best book I have read so far this year. I couldn't put it down. It was absolutely fantastic. It's a new take on the Fae completely, and I just loved every second of it. The ending was, oh my god, I need the second book now. I need it like right now. This was without a doubt the most amazing book I've possibly ever read, and definitely this year. So this one, it was an arc I got from Jen and from KP Simon. So this is out on December 8th, and I would definitely recommend picking it up because it's absolutely fantastic. So now I'm going to go on to tell you my top 3 books of November. So number 3 is Dear Cassie by Lisa Burstein. I just loved it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Lisa's writing style was amazing and addictive. The characters were great. I just loved it. Number 2, was Anomaly by Tonya Cooper. This one is just such a fantastic debut. It's great if you love young adult paranormal books with a hint of action and a bit of romance and things like that. I loved it. And number one, have you guessed it? Wicked by Jennifer L. Armentrout. It was just fantastic. I absolutely loved it. It's so good. I'm really excited for what's going to happen next in the series. So that's it for this month. I hope to see you again next month, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you read in the month of November. So thanks for watching.